Hello and welcome to the first in a two-part series where we focus on the Portals exhibition that I've been curating for First Dibs. In this episode we talked to the first 5 artists in the show. The show is split into 2 weeks and these are the artists in week 1 and we're going to do a second episode for week 2. I was asked by First Dibs to curate a show and asked to choose a theme, and I rested on Portals not just because they are synonymous with the metaverse and science fiction and they're quite handy in virtual reality environments for teleporting you from one parcel to the next with ease. Now, a portal by its very definition is on the threshold between two spaces, but it can also be seen as on the threshold between two ideas or two moments in time. So this exhibition has grown in the space between two ideas and two moments in time and two worlds. On one side we've got the traditional art world, and on the other side we've got this abundant and diverse and dynamic and bewildering new space for collecting and creating art on the blockchain. It's no surprise that something like this would grow on the edges. There is a principle in permaculture that asks us to value the marginal. If you think about the hedgerows between monocultured fields or the riverbanks on the space between land and water, this is where ecosystems flourish. Things grow on the edges. We cross thresholds like this constantly as we travel through life. Each decision we make forks off on a tangent of time and forever changes our lives. When an artist creates a piece on the blockchain, it stamps this artwork into the immutable ledger and hands it a birth certificate in a sense. Before that moment in time, it was still in flux and it was still gestating, and after that moment in time, it is categorically finished and then now it lives its life on the blockchain. That is, of course, exactly what the artists in this exhibition have done. We've got a new collection of NFTs ready to show you. They are being released on First Dibs for auction today. And in this episode of Metanauts, we're going to talk to each of the 5 artists in the first week's show and learn about their own interpretations of the Portals theme and look at their artwork in full screen, high res, and make it front and center as well. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this episode. I'm really proud of what the guys have pulled together, and it was an honor to be able to talk to them about their artworks, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the community responds to this collection. Thank you very much. We're going to begin with Crego. So we've got everybody here now. Hello everyone, how are you doing today?
Good. Hello.
Great. Hi.
Hello.
So here we are. Everybody's in the room. We're going to start with Crego. Talk to him about his pieces for the week 1 Portals exhibition for First Dibs. If I bring them up on screen now, if you could just give us a bit of an introduction to you and how you interpreted this brief, that would be amazing.
Actually, I can start explaining. First of all, I would like to say one thing, because I usually work with photography and video strictly, and then inside of these 2 mediums, I try to reach another styles or another aesthetics. But this time, as the theme was portals, and Lee suggested us this theme, I like a lot. So I try to do something strictly 3D. It's not something I used to do because I not feel really comfortable just. I like to depend on photography and video because it's for me more original in the sense that I have to capture these moments. Mm-hmm. But for this one that was about portals, I was thinking more about 3D because I was thinking more about both the universe and our inner self. So I like to use 3D to explain these more abstract words that for me are more from the inner side and the very outside. So I focus this theme of portals instead of something physical, something as a door or something as a place. I try to do 5 pieces that are like the 5 of them are linked because I can't remember the names of them, but there are like doubt, dialogue, question, inference. So I try to focus in the feeling where that for me a portal is really when we understand something inside us, or when we see or speak or hear something about somebody or something that we didn't realize until we understand inside us. So, for example, in this first piece, it was born thinking about when I speak with somebody is from another position or another point of view. I always enjoy do that. I don't like too much speaking with people that think like me, because I don't learn nothing. But when I speak with people that thinks the opposite, I feel really intuitive, because I am a guy that I love listening, despite I don't agree, because I like to learn. But the feeling of this, that like two opposite opinions that fit each other. At the same time, is like in the universe, when two opposite sides, like light and darkness, and the black holes and the light of the stars collide. It's a portal when we don't know what happened in a black hole, and for me it's the same. We can't know what will happen when we speak with another guy with another point of view. So in these 5 series, I try to do this journey when we collide with some new idea we are not agree or something like this. If you can play the next one, I can speak more about that, because they are linked all together. No, but in general, this was the first point of colliding, and the second one is more about I think is the question. Yeah, and this is the dialogue. I tried to do something like two spheres that are running around them when you speak with somebody, or when you are discovering a new idea. It can be a philosophical idea or a political idea of whatever. And for me, in this dialogue, I focus in a person or in a group of people, but always there is always inside like this, in a tunnel of this idea, and there is always a lot of noise that is represented in the background with these little particles, and most times you never succeed to find a point to meet the other people idea. For me, in my case, when I discover something new, I always question it. So for me, it's very hard to find a meeting point to understand fully the other people, because I am always questioning. And this is the reason these two circles never find the point. They are always running, but they never collide in the head, let's say. And at the same time, it's always surrounded by a lot of noise that is more people talking or more ideas arriving. So it's like the second part for me in my mind is like this, like starting a dialogue with myself and people. But I try always not to really agree in everything, because if I agree in everything, I stop thinking. So I must always keep thinking. And in the next one, I think is the question itself, if you can play. For me, abstract art of this kind is really open to interpretation, and I always think that not only in this, in all my work, I always feel that if I explain it, it's over. And it's like a film, if or a book. If we don't have the writer next to us to ask the writer what he wanted to explain in the book, or we don't have the director of a film to ask him. So in art, for me, despite I love talking and I love philosophy about my work and blah blah blah, I don't really like to explain the full meaning of each piece. But in this case, I think it's necessary for being this kind of abstract works. But so in this case, is like I feel when I question things. The two circles of the previous work are now here in an epicentric way, and let's say that our being is the center point that we are beating, and the question is always around and looking from different perspectives. And I think here is not really clear, but in the circle of the outside, there is a little points that are blinking each 45 degrees, if I can remember. I place the little points because there is these little points that when I'm speaking with somebody, maybe you are talking with them for 2 hours, but there is always 5 or 3 points in your mind that are really clear or very key. And for me, this is the pivoting points, let's say, when I understand something from their point of view. And of course, inside of, again, of this tunnel of ideas and a lot of concepts that I have to understand. And this is when, for me, the dialogue starts, when I find these pivot points. So I can put my mind inside their minds to understand them more than defend my point of view to explain them. So this is the loop where I start thinking, having these pivot points in my mind. So I could explain more about that, but
that's excellent. No, it's brilliant.
I am feeling that the more I explain them, the less meaning have.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to see that there's a concise sort of story between each of the pieces, and you've interpreted the portals with these abstract artworks that represent how you sort of see. How every moment in life is a portal between now and then, and things change constantly. So we're constantly in flux. And a nice way of representing that is through like a conversation between two people where from opposite viewpoints, and how those things can react. So I really like that. You can see that the second one, they're not quite meeting, but in the third one, there's a nice synergy, but you've got these little points around there that show that there are always points in conversations where there are things that meet up, and that no matter how different people seem to be, that ultimately, if we talk long enough, we find things that we all find in common.
Yeah, and this pivot points is curious because you speak with somebody, or you see a documentary or a book, and then you see these pivot points in the street doing another different thing, maybe in the supermarket or listening to somebody, people having a coffee. So for me, it's like these are the portals for me, because when I understand something new, or somebody else give me new ideas, for me it's the portal, because it's when I see new worlds. And so portals for me are not really physical. These are gates, maybe not portals. And this one is called the trial. And I try to express again with let's say that all these particles around are all these little ideas I was collecting. And because I can't understand only, let's say, political idea without thinking in philosophy, or philosophy without thinking in anthropology. So at the very end, everything is everything. So in this one is called trial. And it's the point when we have to decide, because if we are always thinking, we don't advance. So we have to take some decisions. But for me, always having all this environment in mind. And in all the world, all these kind of little particles that maybe sometimes are noise, that don't allow us to have a clear vision of what we want to see. So I try to represent these little circles again, like me and the idea. And like a kind of eye that try to see from inside all the environment, but at the same time, the circle that is running around is like our conscience, and we can't always or never, in fact, look all the panorama. We are always limited by our own perception and our own ideas. And this is the idea of doing this eye, because eye for us is like the third eye, is like the bridge that allow us to see more. But it's always with this little film around our mind that doesn't allow us to see all the panorama. And this links with the next one, that is called the inference, when we have finally to take a point, or to understand this point and dare to jump into it. Because if we don't jump into it, it's really hard to understand some things. So let's say that in the previous one was the journey through this tunnel, that is the idea we want to cross. And this I will try. I wanted to do this like a black hole of light, or a white light, a white hole. And again, the circles represent the person or me that are thinking if enter or not this point. But once you understand some things, the inertia is too strong, and you can't avoid going to this portal. I mean, when you discover an author or music or an album, you never, let's say, a band, for example, Tool, in my life was, when I was younger, was a portal, because I understand some stuff. Yeah, I think you love it.
I love Tool, yeah.
When I was younger, for me was a really big jump about understand music, drums, about patterns. And I feel that it was, I can't avoid it. I could say, no, I don't want to listen to that. But once it's in your mind, you can go give steps back. Like when when you study philosophy, or when you see a film that crushes your mind. So in this case, it was, and I tried to do like two words, that the past and the present, or the future, and this little pivot point that can be only a little quote, or a little second in a song, or a random quote in the street. So for me, in this point is when the portal burns and I cross it, and then we have to go to the first piece again. I always work with loops, so when I do series, I always like to link them all in a perfect loop too. So once you are in the next portal, you meet again another guy or another album or another film that this begins again, and again is another doubt, another question, and I don't know if I explained too good, but
that's good. Yeah. Oh, I think that's wonderful. Yeah, brilliant. And I was going to draw attention to the fact that they are all perfect loops. That's something you've been doing as a GIF artist for a long time, since long before NFTs, long before any CryptoPunk was born, long before Ethereum was born. In fact, you were doing perfect GIF art, weren't you? And I love that I hadn't realized that, but I can see it now, that each of the 5 pieces create a journey in themselves, and that loops background to that point of like conflict, I suppose you would say, where you come up against an idea that you don't fully understand, and then it can work its way through to being actually a point of inspiration that is a portal through to sort of some sort of personal growth.
Yeah, actually, you said that about GIFs and NFT. These words can be a journey of it, because I was doing this a lot of time ago before NFTs, and in these last 2 years, I feel like this because there are some gates I have to cross, despite I was already in. But until I got through them, like for me the key was crypto Twitter site, because I was already there, but I don't have voice. So I decided to cross the gate of Twitter, and for me it was a really huge effort, because I was never in social networks. My brain is not used to be surrounded with a lot of people and this kind of constant engagement. But I must say that I'm really enjoying it, and I'm meeting tons of really nice people, and I'm meeting a really how can I say, a really hard people that thinks hard about this ecosystem, and I am enjoying this a lot, because it's a really nutritive discussions. And so for me, this is my portal. Twitter was my portal.
Great. Yeah, I see that you've definitely attracted an awful lot of new fans over the last 6 months or so that haven't jumped into Twitter. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're here.
I'm really grateful for this, really.
Okay, I speak in general. My artistic research moves in the world of the visible and the invisible. And my starting point is an accurate scientific research to define my own vision that transcendent reality. In this case, anatomy was my starting point for this project, this specific project, rooting in my imagination. I have created my portal. This is my portal. Through this portal, with its 3 souls, we can move from one place to another and be transformed by the ever new experiences. I went to see what exists inside me. I did a reality check and found myself identifying and choosing 4 aspects, 4 systems. In this case, the nervous system is this one, and the circulatory system with veins and arteries, because veins go on the heart, and from the heart go outside the arteries, and the lymphatic system. I focused on the head, where the mind, imagination, and senses live. I turn them in the 4 trees, in the 4 season, because is a moment. In this case, the nervous system is in spring, but is only a moment. Is not always spring in the nervous system, and also. They coexist in my head. I think they coexist because the 4 system is inside our together, and they are there is a continuation of each other in a continuous exchange. And and while I was working on this project, I noticed that every moment through a threshold, every change is a portal to something new. New electrical impulses, new blood, new sap, new nourishment, and also new ideas. My trees, our trees in our heads, in our bodies are full of life, real life and imaginary life, visible and invisible. For me, the idea of portal is also to make visible that is invisible, because you don't have the possibility to see exactly what happened inside us. And I try to make it visible. And also these trees are inhabited by colorful and seemingly motionless birds that observe, listen, smell, feed, touch every part of us, and are ready to take flight. But it's up to you to imagine what they represent to you. I think it's an important opportunity to think about this, because we have something inside us. You have the possibility to go out, to go out these things, and you have the possibility to choose what represents for you everything. And also the season represent also, for example, in this case, the autumn is a preparation to arrival of the cold. We letting go to the superfluous and oxidation all tissue, and then the season change, the season round, and this is my idea of portal. I think we are the portal inside us. And my work explore this part of the body. I love start to the reality and then transform it, because I think the transformation is a continuous moment to pass from one portal to another portal. Is a cycle. We live a cycle every day, every moment, every second. Every cells live this cycle, this transformation. And think my idea of portal is transformation.
Brilliant. Okay, lovely. Yeah, I love how you've taken that the portal is a term used in human biology, but also based on being inside the head, we're looking at the idea of a portal being something that allows you to have the things that live in your imagination interact with the things that live in the real world. That follows through on the seasonal pattern of change. And I also really love that the winter one is having a little bit of a rest here. It's the only one with the eyes closed.
Yes, every season have a different eyes. On the winter, you rest. You rest, but is not real, because inside is not rest, but is a time to little bit rest. And then in spring, we waking up, and then in summer we open big the eyes, because we explore what around us. And on the autumn, little bit go down. Mm-hmm. And if you see together, you see this moment, because also this is a cycle. We every day, every time we use our eyes is necessary for our to close our eyes, and this is symbolic of the cycle. The idea is this one.
I love the fact that it embodies every moment potentially being a portal.
Mm-hmm.
And so every moment we can choose what we take from inside and release into the world. That's really powerful, Lisa.
Thank you, Sparrow.
I would like to say that I love the fact that you remain the birds in all of the four.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the birds can be the meaning of that we are always the same, but we are always changing. Birds are always in the trees, despite the trees are changing always.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I definitely saw them as ideas and dreams and hopes and all sorts of things that can live inside the trees of our mind. Cool, Oggy. Where do we begin with Oggy? Okay, this is Oggy's Genesis piece. And obviously I'll let him describe it to you, but it was really wonderful having the experience, witnessing Sparrow send a little bit of gas money over to Oggy to help him mint his first NFT the other day, and seeing Sparrow's eyes light up at the thought of helping somebody get onboarded into the space, which is beautiful. And Oggy's very first Genesis drop is an 8-minute handmade virtual reality epic video, and I'll let him describe it, but you'll notice that you probably haven't seen anything quite like it before, because every single mesh is constantly moving, every shape is constantly in flux, and it's all been hand painted.
So coming to the Charismos Techne, it's a rather long project that I've started I think initially experimenting with VR 3 years ago, and around 10,000 hours later, I've arrived at various techniques which I've kind of perfected further on. And then when I really started getting to the NFT field through you, primarily, I felt this could be a very interesting project to work within it. And working with VR as amongst pioneers of VR, it is like a horizon into the unknown. It is a portal into something that we haven't explored before. And we're trying to create these beacons for other people, hopefully in future, to follow, and to kind of establish some kind of more visceral things we can touch and feel within there. So it's been quite remarkable to work on something that is unknown all the way throughout working on it, especially when it's such a large project. So this within a horizon line, which would go as far as I can see, if you look as an observer into the horizon from your observation point, that's the vector horizon. And I feel that within there lies what I call Charismos and Charismos Techne. And I had to find a new word to describe the work that I've done, which is like an old Greek term to denominate a separation between form and idea. And as you can see, like everything is in motion, everything is kinetic. It's all moving and interplaying together, all handcrafted and individually arranged into this larger whole. To create what I call charismas, and that act of creation, that's the techne, the word for which became like a technology, which is initially the artful making of something, the creation of something with intent and art, and I create these shapes with a kind of like technique which captures my kinetic motion of any brushes and create them into a larger techne blocks, and then it is these blocks that I further assemble into a much larger whole, bearing in mind that when I'm working within a VR environment for this, I first scale everything up to real scale. So some of these elements are 25 to 27 meters tall, and then I kind of go into the details for it. So if we were ever to be able to see this in VR, which maybe one day we can, technology allows, because they're rather large files, but it moves so fast, then you would see that the scale of it is rather immense. And that scale translates throughout the piece as well. And it also informs my own creation with it. So things which are smaller have less detail because we observe them as to be real scale, and things that are bigger require more attention. And through the act of making and crafting it, you kind of, you self-influence yourself in making and crafting it further on to create this other world which can't exist in any other way. I think you described it as a AI fever dream. It feels like something that's spawned through a machine, but it's delivered through a human, through a biomachine. And then we can only really see it in a digital format. This can't be, you can't print the whole thing because everything is in motion. You can't make a sculpture of it. You can only take a glimpse of it. But to see it whole, you have to experience it in digital. So it is digitally native as such, impossible to be extracted for its whole. You can only get little glimpses of each thing, which is like the life itself in a way. So we can find the shapes that are beyond what we actually see there. Because everything is in motion, it's describing us what the objects and forms are, but they're not those forms. This is what our mind is playing at us to kind of imagine there are these circular things, there are these technological things, but they're not really that. It is just our mind kind of trying to play that. And then with this work being such a large piece, it's 8 minutes, 8 seconds, you can get lost within the technique of it, the artfulness of it, as everything has been handcrafted. I'm really quite aware of trying to put that hand of the artist, hand of the creator everywhere. So nothing is perfectly symmetrical. Everything is put in by hand to make that work within that reality, because our mind can perceive it, it's not. So within that world, to kind of create that notion that it can kind of go in and appreciate the craft of it, but it can also get lost within an anime mundi of it, within the Charismos narrative itself, which is a multi-layer kind of story of creation and seeding, effectively like Genesis within it, opening another portal into another world within the world, which is opening another portal into another world, which then opens another portal into another world. So we're quite fascinating about going into a meta-narrative, and then trying to see how much you can permeate that through in order to create a really rich experience that is very rewatchable, that is very re-experiential. So we can go into that world yet again. So within here, the drones call upon the Zenith to deliver them the Technic blocks, which then spawn the seeding of the next generations of Charisma's Techne. And then those seedings rise up as ground node units in the series 400, as they kind of rise from the ichor of digital into the new world. And it certainly has been, for me, probably a combination of years of developing stuff within VR and pipelines and all of those, and probably decades of working within the art from kind of sequential to commercial. And at this point in time, it is my magnus opus.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful. I love that it is constantly in flux, and that we've been touching on the subject of what is real, and things like the eye and the mind creates a sense of something being in place, but actually every moment is a portal and everything is constantly in flux. And a piece like this just sort of really hammers that home in the sense that it is constantly swimming with detail.
There's a lot of inside things. There are all these ventilator units, and it's no accident that they're there. We just went through a massive pandemic. That's been an influence. There is an impression within this large head that we see eyes, but they're not there. They're actually in a cross section, and there are 42-in-1 optical units that are taking in all the data for the Zenith itself. So there are multiple kind of little kind of gameplays within our perception of reality, within the design of the thing as well, to kind of try to question our vision and question our humanity in the age of technology.
There is just no other word for that than epic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as a Genesis drop, it's going to turn some heads. But you can see that it's been painted in quill, so every little sort of shape that you can see, hopefully you can see properly, but is hand painted, and then it moves on a timeline. It's got its own little animation timeline. And
everything is in a perfect loop as well, just to kind of go that extent. But it all kind of loop and interweave together. So each thing is painted by hand at various speeds, depends on how I was moving myself, and then assembled into larger pieces, and then remeshed, remalleable, resmithed into this new digital thing. And then further on, like for example, for the piece GNU S400X, I've remeshed the pieces multiple times to create the construct. And that kind of procedure is constantly going on, because the more we create, the more we understand what we're creating, and the more we can interpret what we're creating within our own umwelt, and then create back again with that information that's been given to us. And having that cyclical kind of like, I hope it's an outward spiral of creativity, it's one of the best things as an artist to experience.
I like this, the fact that the fractal of knowledge you have said now. And I always, when I see this kind of VR works, because I never worked with it, I am about it, I always have the same question, that is possible to see these works in real time and make our own journey, or these are just renders, final renders or the piece?
Right. Well, with this piece, I've pushed the technology as far as it can go. So there are technological limitations. So for example, we can hit up to 1 gigabyte in VR, and that would create something that you experience in VR. We're still not at a point that we can have full-on texturization in a full way without making it as a game, which requires kind of like a different kind of skill set. You have to like get everything like very, very small.
I suppose.
However, for this one, I've assembled multiple things, actually 36 gigs. But with technology improving, I'm hoping that within the next 3 years, maybe, who knows, maybe sooner, that something like this will be viewable in VR. I mean, with the UA5, the Unreal, there's a distinct possibility to be able to export something like this, have the full-on lighting and everything else we would have like in a CG engine, and I have that in the Unreal, and then use that to have like a VR experience. So, but you know, it's still in beta. The official release is in winter. I booked myself some time to kind of study it. So, you know, I think this future is very close. So with this work, I've pushed it as far as I can technologically. But technology is always moving.
Yeah.
So I'm quite eager to see how much I can push the next technology to come. But after, like, for example, the units which rise from the digital iCore, they can be viewable in VR. And I probably should prepare them so you can actually go and visit them and actually see them in a full kind of VR scale and size. Yeah. The texture isn't there, but the raw mesh is there. So they're just about small enough. They're like 1 gig each.
And for you said that these are really high piece, really tall, and to perceive this colossal side, it will be nice to visit in VR too.
I say like one day, it's a possibility. The way I've built it is that when the possibility comes, it won't take too much to basically export it as such. So I can put everything in, because I put everything in certain coordinates, so they can assemble fairly easily. Yeah. But fingers crossed.
One thing you can do in the interim is render a stereoscopic 360 video. Yeah, that might work in the interim. So you could have it so that you could witness it at scale, but you wouldn't be able to navigate around it. You'd be fixed in the center of it. It would still be 3D, but you wouldn't be able to actually explore it as much.
Yeah, whenever they have the true 3D. The only thing, like with being so large, you'd just be seeing the bottom of things. So there's also there's another kind of skill set to come within there, which is about how you move through the VR space, whether it's a POV, whether it's an FOP, and all of those things. And that, it's really interesting kind of viewpoints that we probably should explore at some point as well.
I'm going to have to move this on now, just so that we can fit this into an hour and a half or so. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Augie. And
a pleasure.
A bit of
and
back and forth.
thank you all for giving me this chance to share this with the world.
Cool, lovely. Now we've got Sparrow. Hey, Sparrow. I'm really happy to have Sparrow on board. Sparrow is one of the first people I met in the NFT space. A huge ambassador for the technology, but also for the community. Like I mentioned earlier, she helped Augie in with his first minting his Genesis NFT, and we've got 4 pieces here. I'll let you describe them, Sparrow, but I do see that they're referencing additive color theory, so red, green, and blue, which is obviously how our eyes work. So it ties into quite a few of the other pieces as well as portals themselves. I'll start with the red one. Yeah, I'll bring that one up now.
Yeah. I mean, it ties into the conversation we were just having about fears of diving into VR because you don't think that you're going to come back out. So obviously there's 2 forms of color theory. One's the additive and the other's the subtractive. So the additive one is used for computer monitors, RGB. The other one is used for printing. It's this CYM. Okay. But I chose to go with the RGB ones because a lot of what came up for me when I started thinking about this project and about portals was the fact that we now every day carry portals in our hands, and we rely on them more and more, especially over the last year and a half when we were all in lockdowns or isolating. We use those portals to connect us with others. And so for me, that was the emotions that came up. And so last year I did a series of color studies. I did a 100-day project where every day it was a practice. I would pick a color or choose an emotion that represented an emotion that I was feeling. And this was during the second lockdown of 2020. And so that goes back to another cyclical theme that both, I think, Isa and Augie mentioned about creativity, building on creativity. And so those color studies informed what I was doing with the portals. So I had the portal piece of these RGB monitors that we look at day in and day out now, and the emotions that are tied to or invoked by the colors that we see. And the art itself basically is asking the viewer a question, which goes back to AL's work, where he was talking about the portal being the meeting of those 2 ideas. And I think that's what art does. Art should be there to engage the viewer in that kind of confrontation and be a portal. So the art itself is a portal to other opinions, other ideas, expansion. Each one of these asks the viewer, what do you feel? What comes up for you when you experience each of these pieces? In the descriptions, I put some of the emotions that I experienced, but that isn't necessarily the only right answer, which is another thing that is important about art. And AL also said that he doesn't give meanings for his work. And to me, the meaning comes from what the viewer brings into experiencing each of these works. So I invite everyone to experience these and sit with them for a little while and then feel what they're feeling and bringing that up through Issa's neurons and little birds, and let those thoughts come back out into the world and be released. And hopefully there's something that you've discovered about yourself, or something that you've discovered about the world, or something that you've been reminded of. When I was doing the color studies back last year, I did surveys. I asked people about what different colors meant to them, or what different emotions they evoked. And a lot of the time, they were directly related to memories that they had. So I know smell is proven to evoke memories, but I think in some ways colors are too. It would be interesting, and I'm on Twitter, blackbox.art. When you experience these, please tell me what it is that you experience, because creating these is only the first step in the journey of what they are and what they will become. And that in itself is a portal.
So you must have had a decision to make there as to how much you do to sort of add to that on top of the color that may dictate or influence people's interpretations of it. Because I can see there's a glitch here, and there's kind of a stormy feel. So that does affect it, but you've obviously had some restraint there as well. It's been more about like, what is the energy of this color?
Yeah, so it's a combination of the energy I felt when thinking about the color and exploring the color, or lack thereof with the monochrome one. The monochrome, obviously RGB, when you combine them together, creates white. Mm-hmm. And so the piece missing from this series, if it had only been RGB, would be black. So I chose to do a dark monochrome one as a fourth element. And actually, this is probably my favorite. I shouldn't say I have.
It's my favorite as well.
But it has a completely different energy to it than the color ones, and there is just something compelling and mesmerizing with black and the absence of light.
I love that Sparrow said that the word memories, because I always try to defend in a funny way that gifts and perfect loops are memories, because our memory are gifts. We never remember a full event. We remember some seconds, and I am a defender of black and white because of this reason, because I think our memories are not in colors. So when we see a black and white loop like this one, I love it. For me, connects even more than the color ones about the word you said, memory. The color ones are more about emotions, and I love that, because when I see them, they evoke me emotions. But when I see more black and white image, the word memories come to my mind. So for me, this is a really nice word, and I love you use these words too. No more like this. Thanks, and I love that.
It's fascinating how, everyone has interpreted this theme of portals in really different ways. And yet so many themes connect all of the works. Well done, Lee.
I'm really enjoying this. Most of you have probably seen Marc-O-Matic's work. He's got a very distinct style. He's created 3 amazing pieces that fit together into a narrative. They're all of us have all made perfect loops, which is very good. That's something that ticks the box for me. And these are all the same, except they are also work together in a narrative. And I'm just going to bring them up one at a time, make sure I put them up in the right order. But then, so Marc-O-Matic, let me understand your thought process when you were given the brief, and how you came to this sort of series. I'll start with this one, the reality diagnostics.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a bit of background about my work and technical approach to the way I create my pieces. It's quite a mixed media of sorts. So, I'm an illustrator, animator, 3D modeler, virtual reality and augmented reality designer. So I really like combining traditional analog mediums with digital mediums. So all these works you see, all the textures that sort of coat these models, they're all hand illustrated. So from the details of the eyes to the platform to the textures and the jackets and on those characters, they're all actually hand illustrated with a ballpoint pen and ink wash. And what I do is I draw in a modular fashion so that the illustrations become textures for my 3D models. And this sort of started over the course of the last 5 years or so after dabbling with augmented reality, because using material from real life is a great way to create a connection between the digital and the physical. So since then, I've been sort of using this sort of illustrative 3D approach in all my NFTs and in all my 3D creations. So I guess with my creations, with portals, I was trying to go down the approach of, and forgive me, I find it a bit difficult to talk about my own works because there's just a lot of different meanings and stories behind them. It's just kind of hard to sort of deconstruct. I guess with these works, it's sort of been inspired by a lot of my own upbringing and I guess the way I was sort of brought up. So, being raised in a very religious Catholic family, being culturally mixed, both Asian and Australian, a lot of influences in my life have sort of made me see the world around me in a different lens compared to somebody else. So this series kind of explores about how everyone's experiences of reality are quite different based on their upbringings, whether they've raised in a religious background, based on the people they're surrounded with, the socioeconomic background they're raised in, whether they're raised in a rich or wealthy lifestyle or a poor lifestyle. So just a lot of factors that make us see the world differently. So for me, using the eye and reducing it from a mystical object, based on Shakespeare's saying of eyes are windows into the soul, and reducing that to not something that's mystical, but that's just purely mechanical, and really just a machine, essentially. I was really interested in sort of perceiving the idea of the eye in that sort of fashion, which is quite, if you've seen my work before, it's quite a recurring theme where I reduce everything from body parts to people to things that are more organic, and reducing them to constructs and machines, and trying to see it through a different lens. So with this, I mean, again, being raised in a religious background, relates in a multicultural background too, seeing the world for what it is, sort of dismantling everything I've been brought up with, and seeing the world through a different lens. Being in lockdown in COVID has actually made me think about a lot of things, from reality to death to what happens after death. And for me, I'm no longer religious at all, because I've come to, I guess, my own realization of what life is. The idea that for me to represent the body as a machine, as nothing of a divine entity, but a machine, a complex machine, makes me come to the realization that there is essentially nothing after death, that the moment your brain starts to deteriorate, you lose all your processing abilities, your memories, everything begins to fade, just like a machine would. And that's kind of, I guess it's a very negative way to look at it, but for me, I think it's realistic. And I think I see life, positively, knowing the fact that once I'm dead, there's nothing after that. So it's made me appreciate life even more. And so this sort of story is about, this eye that receives this information, that receives this indoctrination. It's sort of informed of all this information. And this sort of scene here is sort of a progress of life, of seeing everything and gaining wonder from it. And then in the next piece, this scene here is almost like a depiction of the realization of reality as it is, and not through any lenses that have originally distorted the eyes. So any religious beliefs, any cultural beliefs, anything that's so it was once taught has now been removed, and you now see the eyes seeing life and reality for what it really is. To some, it might be beautiful to see reality for what it is without those boundaries attached to us. To others, it might be horrific. The thought of nothing after death can be scary to some, but for me, I think it's quite liberating and beautiful to realize that, you know, once your life is over, there's nothing after that, and that makes me value my life even more. And you know, I guess this sort of journey of the eyes and seeing the world for it is kind of I guess a sort of a story of that, if that makes sense. Sorry if I'm rambling. But,
it does.
Yeah, it's just it's a journey from, you know, indoctrination to realization to seeing, you know, the world for what it really is. So
wonderful, excellent. Thank you so much for explaining that. So yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, I love it. I love that we've got like I reached out to you straight away because I thought that portals are a great example of the thresholds between technologies. So the fact that your textures are hand drawn and then wrapped around meshes and turned into these digital 3-dimensional characters stuff seemed perfect. And then of course there's the red, green, blue in the back of the eyes in the first piece, which references what Sparrow's been talking about as well. She's excellent. And it's really lovely to hear that there's a much deeper story there as well. It's a beautiful metaphor for that journey. Yeah, it's funny that we haven't talked much about birth and death. You'd have thought that, you know, portals, that, you know, you could definitely sort of tie that into it, but I agree with you. I agree. You can look at the world in a very sort of cold, scientific way, but it actually makes life feel all the more precious, and every decision more important, and every little sort of beautiful thing you see gives it much more value to think that, you know, it's in a blink of an eye. You won't be here anyway.
And just a disclaimer, like, I apologize if that sounds very dim, but I guess it's just I guess it's just one way to sort of, I guess, see life as it is. That's just not the way I've studied it. It's not really a negative way, just kind of a more of a realistic, like, I guess, interpretation of, I guess, the way I see life as is. So sorry again if it sounds a bit gloomy, but yeah.
No, not at all. You're not the party people here. But I will say that you guys have to watch these with the sound on. Obviously, we haven't done it now for conversation purposes, but the sound design and these pieces in the collection are definitely worth paying attention to as well. That last bit of the eyes going into the skull and the awe and wonder with the sound is something special. Cool. I'm just going to get onto mine. I've got my piece is here. It's another perfect loop, and it was modelled in virtual reality as you'd expect, handmade in Gravity Sketch, in more or less a single sitting without reference. And it is my representation of something that I would like to build in the future. So concept art for a portal, inspired by carnivorous plants, and designed to sort of hypnotize and entice you in through the portal. So I've got two pieces, one in the first week, one in the second week. And this is Saracenia Vortex. And I imagine it's something that I would prop up in the metaverse that is, say, I don't know, 2 or 3 stories high. It's evolved over time to have like what looked like foot and hand stirrups to allow you to climb in. The thought is that perhaps in the future there will be fully immersive simulations and metaverse experiences that are run entirely by artificial intelligence. And would that potential artificial intelligence take inspiration from carnivorous plants and camouflaged insects to try and entice avatars through to teleport them into other immersive realities? and how would it design those things. So yeah, that's the inspiration is taken from nature, and the idea is it hypnotizes you and pulls you into, hell knows, God knows where. So that's Saracenia Vortex.
I love your lighting. The lighting that you project just always gives every single one of your artworks such a nice, solid feel. I know that they are just digital, but they feel solid because of the lighting.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I got into NFTs at the same time as getting into 3D. So I've been taking people on a journey from the moment I arrived with my first sort of failing attempts at figuring out how to do anything with 3 dimensions. So over time, hopefully you can see I'm starting to get to grips with materials and lighting and things like that, but still quite a way to go to do the fully immersive, like long form videos and things. But yeah, this is actually, you can visit this in Mozilla Hubs as well in 3 dimensions, and it's got the GIF embedded into it. So it's actually, and you can put a link into it as well. So it is a functioning portal in Mozilla Hubs. I just need to sort of share that with people. But yeah, there we are.
Yeah, I like the fact that in the perfect loop, as we have talked, that it generates what I call the visual mantra. That is what generates the hypnotizing feeling of these works. I like the motion in still pieces, and this is a good example of it. And I agree with Sparrow with the light, of course. It's really nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming together. I know we're all in different time zones around this rocking space, but we've managed to use technology to more or less communicate and show each other's work. Thank you very much for sharing the background stories behind your collections. And I look forward to seeing how the art is received on First Dibs. This video is going to go live on the day of the launch, a little way after First Dibs have put out their marketing. So we'll let that sort of like spread around the internet for a couple of hours, and then we'll come in with a Metanauts episode, and it'd be really nice if we can all sort of push that and share that. Because I really wanted to create something that was going to allow us to just get to know each other and for people to get to know us better than just the captions on the artwork. So thank you so much. It's been really nice that you've all come in, and that we've all got a bunch of brilliant perfect loops that all answer the theme really, really well, and pulled together really nicely. So I'm really happy, and I really, really appreciate you all doing this. I know that it was quite short notice. That's something I didn't have any sort of control over, and I fully appreciate that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort and love to sort of get pieces out that you can be proud of, that you can put up on a new platform that none of us have heard of before. So yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been brilliant. I've loved everyone's artwork. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.
I'm very, very happy. I'm feeling good, so good. Thank you very much.
Cool, that's all I need to hear. Thank you. Thank
you
very
love
much.
all of work. I think it's fantastic because there is a connection for all of us. It's incredible. I love so much. Thank you.
I'm smiling. I'm thinking the same as Isa right now.
I like it. I am
they
smiling.
almost seem to exist in a definite collection. There's strong links permeating everything. So yeah. It's quite amazing. Lots of really similar themes that I think a lot of us digital creatives have in our minds, which seem to come across in our work, which is amazing.
Thank you very much for joining us on this special episode of the Metanauts. It is the first in a 2-part series. We will be talking to the artists in the second half of the portals. First Dibs drop next week. If you would like to check out the NFTs themselves, then the link to the NFT platform will be in the description below, along with contact details for all of the artists. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll see you again next week.